Our chapter is Chapter 29, World War II and all the problems that made it happen.
What made World War II a turning point in history?
All of this began with World War I. The treaty at the end led to everyone but America becoming broke and angry. Then America became broke and angry. After World War I, European countries were repairing their homeland as well as repaying U.S. loans. As a result of the crash, the banks closed, and many people lost their life savings. It led to massive poverty and unemployment. The crisis then spread to other industrialized nations as a result of the interconnected global market. Economies in Europe stagnated, leading to desperation. Many people believed this was the end of capitalism that Karl Marx had predicted. This event had a heavy impact on the economy of the world. In countries like Japan and Germany, both hit hard, the discontent led to the people turning to solutions like fascism, dictatorship, and militarism.
In America, we usually focus on the Depression and its effects on the US. However, due to the interconnectedness of the global economy, there was a large effect on the economies of the rest of the world as well. This map shows the impact of the Great Depression around the world. The dark orange shows the countries whose exports declined in the period of the Great Depression. For countries whose economies depended on exports, the crash would have been devastating. They would have no one to export their products to. Because of this interconnected global market, the entire world was in the Depression.
As China's economy slumped during the Great Depression, the Communist Party led by Mao Zedong emerged in China. In China, the new Kuomintang Party of the Chinese Republic had a rival in the Communist Party led by Mao Zedong. The Communist Party was chased into the mountains, putting up a fight using guerrilla tactics and slowly winning the peasants' support. However, they were eventually encircled and forced to flee. This event was known as the Long March. At the time, many believed it was the end of the communists. However, they later re-emerged, once again growing popular by continuing to fight the Japanese in the Sino-Japanese War and listening to the grievances of the poor. Their rising popularity set up their rise to complete power in China and a new sense of nationalism and culture in China.
Another country affected by the turmoil in the world at the time was Italy, which turned to fascism under Benito Mussolini. The grip of fascism was shown in Benito Mussolini's work, The Political and Social Doctrine on Fascism. With it, Mussolini extols on fascism's superiority to democracy, socialism, and pacifism. He showed it to be simple, a society no longer based on material and economic values, which considers the people's future. He explains why fascism does not allow for pacifism, saying it thus repudiates the doctrine of pacifism, born of a renunciation of the struggle and an act of cowardice in the face of sacrifice. He calls pacifism cowardly, shown through militarism in the fascist countries. He argued here that fascism was the best regime and doctrine. He claimed that it can act in the face of all problems, practical or intellectual, which confront the world. He made it seem like it could fix all of Italy's problems, which helped convince the people to follow him. Reading this, one could see why people would have turned to fascism. Mussolini's ideas and method grew in popularity, and many other leaders imitated his policies. And then came World War II, and with it, the most famously evil of these imitators, Hitler.
Adolf Hitler formed the National German Socialist Party, or Nazi Party, in Germany. He emphasized nationalism, racism, and war in his book Mein Kampf. His first goal was to remove the restrictions from the Treaty of Versailles. He stopped paying the money to France and Britain and began building an army, which was expressly forbidden in the treaty. Once the Depression hit, many Germans turned to his tactics as a way to save their lives. Hitler was very charismatic. His speeches stirred the people to follow him.
Wir mussten als Partei in der Minorität bleiben, weil wir die wertvollsten Elemente des Kampfes und des Opfersinns in der Nation mobilisierten, die zu allen Zeiten nicht die Mehrheit, sondern die Minderheit ausgemacht haben.
However, they had deep social impacts, as prejudices were ignited against anyone who didn't fit into Hitler's ideal master race. Hitler's main goal? Take over the world.
Fight! Round 2. Fight!
Hitler's main goal was never glory or popularity. Instead, he wanted to conquer enough land for the German people, which he called living space. His conquests were left unpunished because the other nations were practicing appeasement, afraid to start another war. New technologies meant the war moved fast and many died. The war was global, with Japan attacking China and the USA, and the Axis power in Europe facing off against Britain and the USA and eventually the Soviet Union. With the pressure caused by the failed conquest of the Soviet Union and the uniting of the Allies, Germany's hold on Europe slipped, and it was finally defeated.
The beginning of the end came when the USA dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The bombs killed 90,000 to 146,000 people in Hiroshima and 39,000 to 80,000 in Nagasaki. 2 weeks later, the Japanese signed the terms of surrender. The war was officially over. However, its impact was felt much farther. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were highly efficient, deadly weapons. The 2 atomic bombs killed more people than the 296 planes sent to bomb Tokyo. Hiroshima had almost triple the mortality per square mile than the multiple bombings of Tokyo, and the casualty rate per square mile was almost tripled.
Days later.
Today, nuclear weapons are still a hot topic of debate and interest. There has been much talk on the nuclear capabilities of countries such as North Korea. North Korea has been under extreme scrutiny as the current leader Kim Jong-un has been rumored to be facilitating nuclear tests he claims are successful. This has put both the media and world leaders on edge, as all can remember the terrible destructive power these weapons have. The world leaders all now tread carefully, as another world war with these kinds of weapons of mass destruction could be devastating for the entire world.
As you can see in the figure, the number of deaths, civilian and soldier alike, were staggering. One of the highest death tolls was from China, who lost about 15 million people. When the Japanese invaded, they spread terror and violence, committing terrible acts such as the rape of Nanking. Germany and Poland are also near the top of this list. Concentration camps contributed to this, as the Jewish community of these countries were collected in death camps. The Japanese also lost many lives, one major reason for this being the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which killed over 105,000 people. The war was truly global. Colonies like British India and French Indochina, which were not officially fighting in the war, also have death tolls in the millions, as they supplied their mother countries with soldiers and other war support. The United States and the United Kingdom are farther down on this list. Despite being major fighting powers in the war, their own civilian casualties were lessened due to no official war on their own soil. The UK is an island and was protected from anything but air raids. The US was separated from fighting by an ocean, the only civilian casualties stemming from the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. The impacts World War II made on the world were staggering. The introduction of fascism and the rise of communism challenged the way the world was governed. Hitler's sudden rise to power forced the Allies to come together and fight against the influence of fascism and communism, which set up the tensions for the Cold War. The creation of new war technologies, most notably nuclear weapons, caused death rates to skyrocket. For the first time in history, civilians and soldiers alike were being killed by the millions. These weapons began rapidly changing the environment, a problem that still plagues the world today. As a result of these factors, World War II had an intense impact on the world and contributed to making our society the way we know it.